special guest at 2018 Buffalo Comicon, Jim Shooter. I was going to list all the things that Jim has done in his fabulous career in the media we all love. I'd take up the entire hour. So let me just say a couple of things. Sold his first comic book story at age 9. 13, but I was close. Writer or an editor for DC Comics, writer, editor-in-chief of Marvel. Has probably written every comic book character in the Marvel universe, and the DC universe, and the Valiant universe that he created. And he's going to talk to us today about comic book writing. Can't think of a better person to do that. Our very special guest, Jim Shooter.
Not only by comic book writing, but writing in general, because the bedrock is the same for all these things. Other guys will talk to you about, if you go to Neil Gaiman or something, you get into discussion about, writing dialogue or developing characters. And what I find, though, is that no one talks about the bedrock. No one talks about the real fundamentals. So I kind of try to focus on that. There's so much more, it would take forever to get into all the rest of it, but I'm going to talk about the fundamentals of writing. It applies to whatever you do, screenwriting, books, comics, whatever. Okay, here we go. About 330 some years before the birth of Christ, this guy named Aristotle, he got curious about what is the story, why do I like some and I don't like others, and I guess he had a day off and he decided to think about it. And he came up with kind of the answer to that, and he wrote a book about it called Poetics. Do not recommend reading this book; it's tedious. But the essence of it was very good. He came up with what a story is, and then went on to describe what he thought made a story good. Okay, now it's important to know he did not decide this. He did not invent it. He observed. Okay, he just saw what seemed to work, what people liked, and he said, "Oh, this is what it is." About 350 years later, this Roman philosopher poet named Horace, big fan of Aristotle's, he looked at Aristotle's work and he thought he had some ideas along these lines. So he expanded upon what Aristotle did, and he wrote a book called Ars Poetica. Don't recommend it. But the ideas in the book are really, they live to this day. And so when I'm telling you this stuff, it's not me talking, it's me trying to pass on the wisdom of the ancients. Not only Aristotle and Horace, but ancients like Stanley and other ancients. Okay, what they come up with? Basically, they realized that the story had a definition. There was something called a story. It wasn't just random stuff that, it wasn't a laundry list, it wasn't a poem. It was something called a story. The fact that something has a definition should not limit you. I mean, a sentence has a definition. We learned it in second grade. It's a complete thought. All right. A paragraph has a definition. It's a collection of sentences related to the same subject. You march up the order of organization, and eventually you come to story. And this is my own words, but I'm basically paraphrasing the ancient guys. A story is a complete journey. All right. Now, it's hard to remember. The way that it was described by the ancient guys was that the story consists of some protagonist. In the age of Pixar, it could be a car, it could be an insect, but there's somebody or something we care about. We have to understand the situation that protagonist is in. What's the milieu? What's the situation? Something must disrupt that situation. Something has to change that situation. Something which throws things into conflict. Throws forces into conflict. Sometimes two, could be more. Then these forces reach a point where the outcome has to be decided, a climax, or somebody wins, or something happens to end the conflict. And then there should be a new situation, which is different than the original situation. That's a bunch of stuff that's hard to remember. So I got together with Morris and Aristotle one day, and I came up with Little Miss Muffet. Little Miss Muffet sat on top of eating her curds away. Along came a spider and sat down beside her and scared Little Miss Muffet away. That's a story. Okay? Little Miss Muffet, there's our protagonist. Sat on a tuffet eating her curds and whey. She's having lunch. Seems okay so far, right? Along came a spider. Whoa, that's going to mess up lunch. And sat down beside her. Now, let's look at the forces in play here. Spider could bite her. Might be poisonous. You don't know. She could see it. She could step on it. You don't know. I mean, what's going to happen? We're not sure. Scared poor Miss Mother. She sees it. Away. So the resolution is not being bitten or stepped on. She gets away. Cool. All right, new situation. She's not going there for lunch anymore. There's spiders there. Okay? So that's a story. And I use that because everybody can remember Little Miss Muffet. And if you can remember Little Miss Muffet, you can remember the elements of a story. Those are the elements. It's not a formula. It's a definition. If that stuff isn't there, it's not a story. Just like with a sentence, when you leave the verb out, it's probably not a sentence. So that's really basic. That's the basic building block. And when you grasp that, then a lot of things become clear. If I had a room full of professional writers, screenwriters, and novelists, and TV writers, they'd be saying, "Yeah, duh. What's the news?" Because those people went to school and learned. Okay, but there's very few schools that teach this, and it's so fundamental. And so a lot of people sit down to write. They're very talented, and they have a lot of ideas, but they just don't know how to organize. See, all Western languages are based on symbols that have no meaning by themselves. Written language, symbols, letters, right? No meaning. They gather meaning as you organize them. First into syllables. Well, actually, the smallest unit is called a morpheme. It's like the S on the end of a word that makes something cool, changes the word. Morpheme. Okay, but then there's syllables, and then there's words, and then there's clauses and phrases and sentences. And as each level of organization grows, you have more potential for content in what you're saying. When you get up to the level of story, which is way up the chain, now you have a vast array of options. The fact that there's a definition for story did not prevent Shakespeare from doing what he did not prevent the writers of Laverne and Shirley from doing what they did. It's just a definition. It should not inhibit you in any way. This is the fact that the sentence has a definition didn't inhibit Shakespeare, or Salinger, or Hemingway, or Laverne and Shirley. So that's the thing, is to understand it. And now, in our languages, all Western languages that are made from these little letters, I'll give you for contrast. The Eastern languages generally are ideogram-based languages. Okay? Picture. All right? I mean, when the first ideogram was made, the Chinese ideogram for house was made, it looked like a house. It got abstract over the course of millennia. But basically, it's a very different type of language, and there's a very different logic in the language. The logic of the language is called syntax. The syntax of all the Western languages, and especially the Romance languages, goes as follows. Actor, action, result. All right? Notice the similarity of the story. Doing what happens, how's it come out? All right? And except that's on a much more complex level. John went to the store. Okay? What we got? John, presumably, out of the store. Went. Okay, that's the action. To the store. Now John's at the store, which is a different situation than it was when it started. Expand that exponentially, and you have the story. All right, it's hardwired into your brain. You cannot avoid this. If you think in a Western language, story is hardwired into your brain. We are all natural storytellers. We all tell stories every day. What happened at school? What happened at work? The big game we just saw. Whatever. And we will tell it in order. We will tell oh, there was this quarterback, and this was the situation. It's the end of the game. The championship's on the line, and there's a fumble, and oh, there's the spider. There was a fumble, and then they'll talk about getting the ball back and there's seconds to play and they've got one play to make it, and the running back will fumble the ball. They give him one more chance and he breaks through the line and he's running down toward the goal. Everybody's wondering what happened, right? Okay, all right, I'll continue. And the world's biggest linebacker's in the way, and he dives, and they say, wait. Everybody in the room says, wait, you didn't say anything about a linebacker. And they go, oh, I forgot. See, if we do it wrong, we will correct each other, because it's hardwired into the listener's brain, too. Oh, yeah, it's linebacker, all state, biggest guy in the world, he's been shutting them down all day. And so, so he dives. Does he score or not? I mean, if we don't tell, everybody walks away saying, what was that about? All right. So there's that. So if you can remember Little Miss Muffet, and you start looking for Little Miss Muffet, you'll see it in every movie, every television show, every novel, anything that's written by a professional writer, you'll see it. Okay? Using an example the other day of Breaking Bad. School teacher, struggling, trying to do well for his family, not getting much respect. Kids make fun of him, blah, 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 blah. Along comes the spider. He gets terminal disease, right? Okay, now he's got conflict. He doesn't want to be a bad guy, but he wants to provide for his family. He's a chemistry teacher. So he figures he can cook drugs, So we go through this adventure, and he's trying to sort that out. He finds a friend to help him. But the bad guys, they're not going to let somebody infringe on their drug trade. And it comes to a climax where he's starting to be in business, but the bad guys find him, and then they're going to just take everything and put him to work for them. But we've long established that he's a chemistry teacher. So he finds a way to sort of mix some chemicals together to create a gas that gets rid of the bad guys. And now he's in business. Teacher, rotten life, drug dealer, much different situation. So anyway, you'll find it in you can't avoid it. It's in every Shakespeare play. It's in everything Salinger wrote. It's in everything Hemingway wrote. It's always there. If you look for it, you'll see it. Now, Little Miss Muffet is very simple. It's very stupid. It's just really the basic brick. It's what you build. You can build a Taj Mahal, you can build an outhouse, but that's what you build it. I'm not recommending that you do straight Little Miss Muffet. I'm saying understand the structure and then go from there. You can have more than one spider, multiple spiders, or you can have a twist in the middle, like Rocky. It starts out being a story of a fight, he realizes he can't win, and then it becomes about his manhood, and it's a story of a fighter. Stuff like that. Twist the plot. And you add subplots, supporting cast, car chase, throw in a little hand of fang fighting, the Little Miss Muffet. Whatever. I mean, but you can make it better. You can make it more exciting. You can make it more visual if it is in a visual medium. You can make it better. If you understand that, you look for it in everything you see, because all this stuff will start to become clear. Now, the way to go from just a story, you go from a lousy story like Little Miss Muffet, you make that better, and let's do that right now. Lousy story, Little Miss Muffet. Okay, what do we do to make this better? Okay, we throw in a car chase. Big deal. What can we do to really make it better? Think about it. Little Miss Muffet. She's eating lunch alone. Maybe she's a lonely girl. Maybe she wishes she had a friend. Spider. He's ugly. He can't get a date. I mean, so now you got almost a theme going here. It's loneliness, and so now it becomes not only about she's afraid of spiders. It becomes about, is she more afraid of spiders, or than she is of being alone? And is he more wanting a friend than he wants to bite her leg? And so all the dimension comes into it. And so at the end, when she runs away, yes, she's more terrified of spiders than she is of being alone. And we learn something about her. Maybe with luck, about ourselves. So I'm not talking about parables morality plays. I'm talking about as your character goes through their experiences. Do you have any insight into that? Do you have an insight into the human condition? Do you have anything to say about being lonely? Were you ever lonely? Can you make the audience understand what it felt like? Can you give them a new way to look at it, or even give them a way to say, yeah, I felt it. I know that. Okay. You look at that's the difference between just a story and literature. You look at Huckleberry Finn. You ask 1,000 people, what's Huckleberry Finn about? And 1,000 people will say, it's about two guys floating down a river on a raft. Baloney. It's about the equality of man. Okay? And if you go through it scene by scene, everything about it talks about the equality of man. You have this kid who's been trained his whole life to think of these certain kind of other people as inferior. Right? And yet, again and again, the evidence of his eyes, the guy he's with is supposed to be inferior. It's the best man he ever met. It's the father he never had. Yeah, and then the events that happen along the way, especially the one where the Duke and the Dolphin. That's how Webster says to pronounce it. I don't know. Dauphin, something. I have no idea. Anyway, when he meets the Duke and the Dolphin, they are people theoretically superior to Huck. They're royalty. Okay. Okay, how does that work out? All right? They turn out to be con men and jerks and really kind of crappy people. Not anywhere near as noble as Jim. And so what happened? If anybody here in this room can tell me what happens to the Duke and the Dolphin at the end, you win a prize. Anybody know? Okay, you know?
Don't they end up getting executed, or they're about to be hung?
What happens is, they try to pull this con on this entire town. They get caught running away, okay? And so they are tarred. They're made black. Nice one, Mark Twain. So, if you, in the subtlest way, in the form of entertainment, Mark Twain tells a story that will be delivering its message for 1,000 years. Okay? That's literature. Okay, so you remember Little Miss Muffet, okay, and you start there, and you build, and then you start building, you start thinking, how would that person feel? What would really happen? You know, how can I intensify that point? Or do I have anything to say? How can I say that? And like I said, it's not a moral. It has nothing to do with parables. It's just, if you're writing, presumably you're trying to express something. Have something to express. Okay? If you don't like Little Miss Muffet, think about music. You like music and you like songs? Every song that tells a story, every single song that tells a story, same structure. Let's see, in 1814 we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans. Okay, so what do we got? The guy must be a soldier, right? Okay, we're marching down along the Mississippi. Cool. He's got his bacon, he's got his beans. Things are good, right? Next line in the song. Fought the bloody British in the Battle of New Orleans. Uh-oh, there's your spider. Okay, along came a spider. Battle of New Orleans, that sounds fierce. That sounds like important. You know, uh-oh, what's going to happen now? Okay, and you keep going through the song. Well, it said we could take them by surprise. We didn't fire muskets. Yeah, it's like, all right, our guys have a plan. And you know the British are the bad guys because they're the bloody British. So they have a plan. Okay, we fired our guns and the British kept it coming. Oh, yeah, this is not working. You know, it's going back and forth. We don't know what's going to happen, you know. Fired once more, and they began to win. The good guys won. Thank you. So, I mean, there's a Little Miss Muffet. Every song, everyone. Ever since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball. Soho down to Brighton, I must have played them all. Okay, who we got here? We got a pinball player. That's our guy. What's his milieu? Soho, which is southern Manhattan. Brighton, which is the middle of the Jersey Shore. Okay, so now we know where he is. He's been playing pinball since he was a young man. So he's probably pretty good at it. Next line of the song. I never seen anything like him in any amusement hall deaf, dumb, blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. You think there's going to be a contest? You think there's going to be conflict? You know? Okay. While I'm at it, since we're on that song, one of the things you do as a writer is the first time a character comes on stage, you let people know who it is. Okay, you just let people know this guy's a soldier, this guy's a pinball player. It's called introducing the character. You never really stop introducing the character, although the technical term is you develop the character that you have introduced. All right, so in the Pinball Wizard song, the next line is the deaf, dumb, blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. The next line is continuing to introduce. Stands there like a statue. Becomes part of the machine. Something. Always plays it clean. And you know that's an important thing to know. I'm jumping around here a little bit, but as long as I'm on that song. And what you'll find is if you go through that is an opera, so it takes a couple songs to do it. But you will find a little misspelling. Okay, and there will be a resolution that will be different in the beginning. Let's see. Give me another example that's real easy to look at. Uncle Scrooge. Have you ever seen an Uncle Scrooge comic book by Carl Barks? I think Don Rosa's too are like this. You ever seen an Uncle Scrooge comic book that doesn't on the first page have him doing something cheap or miserly? No, you have not. It's like he'll be standing over a storm drain. And he's got a string with a piece of gum on it. And he's trying to get a nickel out of the storm drain, or he's swimming in his money balls, or something like that, all the time. And the thing is, every time you see Uncle Scrooge, he's doing something cheap or miserly. So you keep developing that. All right. You always have to do it that way? No, there are no rules. Everything I'm telling you, you can change up. You can do it out of order. You can start with the spider, and then kind of backfill. Who is this guy that we're worried about? You know, it doesn't have to be a nice, cozy situation at the beginning. If you're on the beach in Normandy and getting shot at, that's your situation. A soldier, I'm being shot at. That's your situation. Okay, that could be your situation. I mean, and then what happens? Your bus buddy that you've been relying on the whole time just gets shot. He's dead, and now you're on your own. You became a swiper. Okay, and then how he deals with that is the story. Introducing characters. For instance, let's say you have a character, and the first time we see him, he's wearing a tuxedo. He looks great. He's got his opera tickets tucked in the cummerbund. He's on his way to the Met, you know, and you think, well, this must be a rich guy, swell, you know, seat sixth row center, you know, everything. You think, oh, man, he's in with the rich folks here. And stage manager comes out on stage before the show, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, one of our actors' costumes split. You know, is there a tailor in the house? And our guy says, I'm a tailor. Oh, who knew? Like a surprise reveal. See, you can do anything, all right? Now, ordinarily, when you introduce a tailor, he'd have a tape around his neck and a soap marker in his hands and pins in his mouth. But we wanted to surprise people. And guess what? The fact that he likes opera will probably come up again later in the story, all right? So okay, the guy goes back and fixes the costume, and then we go from there to the adventures of our tailor with Uncle Scrooge. And also, you're not talking ciphers. Don't make ciphers. Uncle Scrooge is a simple cartoon character, probably as close as you can get to a cipher and the stuff we do. But even Uncle Scrooge, I'm making this up, but I've read scenes like this. I can't remember one offhand, but I'll make one up. Let's say the nephews see Uncle Scrooge giving a quarter to a young duck. Uncle Scrooge, giving away a quarter? What? And so they ask him, what are you doing? Giving away a quarter? Are you sick? Are you worried? And Uncle Scrooge explains that, this young duck has a newspaper route, has a lemonade stand, does errands. He's a hardworking young duck. It reminded him of when he was a kid. Okay? So that gives us like a new insight. It does develop inward. And we have a new insight into Uncle Scrooge. And maybe somebody gave him a quarter, and that became the foundation of So I'm not recommending formulas. I'm not recommending rules. I'm not recommending any of that stuff. I'm saying understand what they are, and then play with them. Go nuts. But do it for a reason. Always do it for a reason. Don't just do it randomly. And my advice, my consistent advice is watch movies. It's the easiest thing. Or those long TV shows like Breaking Bad or whatever. And sit there and think about what did that professional writer do? Presumably knows what he's doing. He or she is doing. What did they show me? Why did they show me? And how did they show me? And you start, that's better than going to film school. You start picking that stuff apart. You start seeing, hey, it just showed me Indiana Jones going into this cave to get some ancient artifact. Oh, well, now I know a lot about Indiana Jones. That's what he does. We see that he's not afraid at all of the giant tarantulas. Doesn't bother him. However, he sees a snake and he's like, oh. So, you think that's going to come up later? Okay. So we learn a lot about this character. We've seen him. He's been introduced. He's stealing this artifact. Now we're developing him, finding out more about him. He starts to take the artifact. There's a rival who's also trying to get it. There's a nice chase scene and stuff. And the rival actually outwits him and gets off with the artifact. And Indiana Jones escapes with his life. All right, that's Normandy Beach. That's his life. That's the normal situation. Okay, so what's going to disrupt that? The Ark of the Covenant has been found. Exactly where, where there's a map. Okay, spider. Spider doesn't always have to be a problem. Spider can be an opportunity, like in Rocky. It's a pug, right? He miraculously gets a shot at the champ. That's not a problem. You get hit once, you fall down, you go home with $500,000. That's not a problem. It's an opportunity. And yet, just like any other spider, it throws everything into conflict. It changes everything. His relationship with a girlfriend changes. His relationship with a loan shark changes. All of a sudden, after not even taking it seriously, he realizes he has to train. His relationship with the manager changes. All these things. And then, of course, there's always the looming threat of the fight. So you've got that tension building. So, and then as I said before, in that movie, there comes to a point where he realizes he can't beat the champ, but he can go 15 rounds. If he does, nobody ever did that before. If he does, then he's a man. Okay? So, that's what I'm advising. That's what I'm telling you. You guys probably already know more about dialogue than most people, and more about you're more creative than most, or else you wouldn't be putting up with this stuff from me. But that's the root of the craft. Once you learn that, then hit the books, learn about literary devices, learn about how to make your books. Rocky. Okay, he starts to train. He runs up the stairs to the library in Philadelphia. He has a stitch in his side. He's exhausted. He gets up there and he's Later, after he trains, runs up the same stairs, bounds up the stairs. No problem. Gets to the top, jumping up and down, exulting, And just to show you that Stallone is a little heavy-handed, he wrote it. The city is at his feet. The world is at his feet. The sun is rising. Can we lay it on with a trowel? That's called parallel construction. He doesn't run up a different set of stairs. He runs up the same stairs. Couldn't do it before, does it easily now. And so he's stronger. Okay? Another technique right after that is called juxtaposition, where Rocky is feeling great. He's exulting on the top of the hill. Cut to the night of the fight, the night before the fight, and Rocky can't sleep. And then he goes to the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Miraculously gets in. I'm not recommending some of this, but miraculously gets in. He realizes that there's two posters. The champ looks great, he looks terrible, and his trunks are the wrong color. Again, I'm not recommending some of this. The champ's manager happens to be there in the middle of the night. Why? I don't know. But he comes over to Rocky and says, try to give us a like diminishing, right? Also, top of the mountain, bowels of the spectrum, where he is very small. He's a giant on a hill. And he's very small. So putting those two scenes side by side really creates that contrast. Okay, and that's when he decides that he has to go to 15 rounds to prove himself. Okay. Anybody have any questions about it? Anybody?
Let me ask you about the Marvel method synopsis.
We've got a question here first.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, in a form like comics where there is kind of a, I believe Stan said, an illusion of change, how do you reconcile the fact that every story should change something fundamentally when, for example, there are certain things about a character, like say Superman, that you don't want to change, but you want to have
No,
it?
I didn't say it to make fundamental change every thing. I said the ending has to be different than the beginning. And there's a lot of ways to advance a character or develop a character. You can develop them forward, in other words, Aunt May can die, or you can develop them inward, which is to say, now I know something I didn't know about this guy, or now he has a new friend, or now he's learned something, or it doesn't have to be the marrying Mary Jane. It could be anything that is something that makes the fact that the story happened mean something. And I had a lot of talk with my editors at Marvel back in the day about like developing the character inward, knowing more about them at the end of the story. And by the way, if you're Mark Twain, you know more about yourself. You've seen something that you can relate to, and you maybe feel something. If you can do that, you win. I mean, that's if you can make people feel and say, yeah, I know what that guy feels like, or I never understood how that felt before, or that's when you win. But it's not about catastrophic changes of characters ever, and not even in novels necessarily. It's really about making it mean something, making everything that happened mean something. It could mean a lot of things. Sir?
Marvel method. The writer gives a synopsis to the artist draws up, the writer puts on the page, and it's productive. How do you appraise that?
Well, that's not how I would do it. I mean, when I went to DC, and I not only wrote all the copy, I actually laid out the panels, little drawings. So, I mean, and the artists in those days, they were professional. It's really funny, the all-time greats, older guys, guys who've been around a while, they followed my lanes. Hall of Famers followed the kids' lanes, right? And sometimes they would help me correct something or talk to me about it. But these days, it's like the pencilers seem to think that the script is a suggestion. And they just kind of do what they want, which is bizarre to me. I don't know. And so you run into that problem. I mean, not only Marvel style, where you're like giving the plot to an artist hoping that he tells the story you want, like as a silent movie in pictures, which does not often happen, especially these days. You see it worked really well when Stan was dealing with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko.
Oh, yeah.
They got it,
Yeah.
they knew what to do, and they did it. But, you deal with a young kid, I mean, even a very talented young guy. I worked with a guy named Francis Manimal before. The kid's great, but he was new. And he didn't know her. Big deal. He learns. But in the meantime, you put something in there and he doesn't do it right, or he leaves the climax out. Now what do you do? It is a problem. I'd say it would be more of a problem with Marvel style than it is with the full script style, except that, like I say, they ignore the full script too. So I don't really treat the full script like it's a plot. A lot of them these days. If you're lucky enough to get yourself a David Lapham, or not that Frank needs any other writer to work with, but a guy like Frank Miller, somebody who understands and executes what you have in mind. The reason I love working with David Lapham, not only would he execute what I asked him, he would add to it. He would have insights of his own. And so I would call for something, and maybe a background character. Just put an expression on there. It's perfect. It might, help deliver the message. But I don't know. I think that's why these days the guys that are really doing really well are the ones who do the whole thing. Like David Lapham or Frank Miller.
You still following Guns N'
I haven't seen it for a while. But
still going great.
oh, speaking of not doing it in the right order, I mean, you take a look at Stray Bullets, which is David Lapham. In the first issue, starts in the middle. I think he was just shown. But the first issue starts in the middle. The spider happened a long time ago. He doesn't. The setup happens gradually throughout the story. You start to get to know these characters that are introduced. But you're like on page 12. But it's been a fun ride up till then. So you're starting to get to know the characters, and then finally you're starting to find out what it was before and what the spider was. And he just didn't slavishly do the rules, but he got it all done. He found a way, he got it done. And that was one of the most amazing. A lot of times I read something, or I see a movie or a book, and I say, I couldn't have done what David did on the best day of my life.
Well, I want to know, would you think the same way as what Kirkland did with The Walking Dead? Because it started like in the middle. Like,
you can do it. I mean, you better be skillful if
it
you're
seemed
going to do
like
it.
it's what he did. It seemed like he started that right in the middle. He comes out of the hospital by himself, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's being attacked by dead people.
But he fills it in, and you eventually understand everything that happened and what triggered it all to happen. No, if you're very skillful, you can get away with it. But Shakespeare never did. Hemingway never did. Salinger never did. I mean, it's I tend to do it in order. But some guys see a way to do it not according to the standard policy. And it works for you. If it works, you can do anything. Anything. It's just you have to make it work. You have to do it for a reason, and make it make sense, and make it work, and get the job done. If Little Miss Muffet isn't in there, if you leave a part of that out, people are going to say, "Who's the linebacker?" Or, "Wait, did he score?" and so you got to make sure it's all in there. But if you're very clever and inventive about ways to do it, go ahead. God bless.
Because I noticed something like with older books, like with the Fantastic Four, for example, they would introduce a character, you didn't know who he was, he'd be shadowed out, and then you didn't see him again. I mean, like, it left you hanging.
Yeah, that's the next issue tease. That's really has more to do with the next issue.
But is there any way, sometimes you don't see that character for a couple of issues. Is there, that spider going to reemerge, unexpectedly? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I wrote a sequence in the blog about all the different ways that you can tease upcoming stories. You can show a little snippet of it. It doesn't totally relate to the story it's in. Fantastic Four fighting, somebody, the Mole Man, and in the middle you cut to Latveria. Dr. Doom is working on this machine that's going to change the world, and you understand the context, and it's not a total non sequitur, just ruining it for you. But you understand there's something else going on in the world. Next issue, he's now just about to complete the cosmic pinwheel. And finally you get to the issue where it's about Dr. Doom, the cosmic pinwheel.
Right.
So it's basically a next issue book. It's an ad for an upcoming issue, and then you can do that a lot of ways.
So you're saying like that would be the spider, the next spider.
Yeah. You can presage the spider that's going to be a couple issues from now. You can do. There's nothing you can't do. It's really learn your craft and spend a lot of time hitting the books. The best books about writing that I'm aware of are screenwriting books. I recommend reading the William Goldman books. He prints a screenplay and then he talks about it. They're very good. Stephen King wrote a book called
On Writing.
Writing Well.
It's called On Writing is the Stephen King one. On Writing is the Stephen King one.
Okay, that's right. On Writing. And I recommended the show yesterday. There are two things that are easily available online. It's one by Mark Twain. It's called Literary Offenses of Fenimore Cooper, which is a humorous piece, but it teaches you more about writing in 20 minutes than a year in a writing class. And the other one is a 2-page thing written by Kurt Vonnegut Jr., and it's called How to Write with Style. That one I got right. How to Write with Style. So it's a good Hemingway book, and the title of that escapes me. But he had a lot to say about writing. Look up Hemingway writing, you'll find it. But you know, all the stuff that the Neil Gaimans of the world will tell you, that counts too. I mean, learn to develop your characters, learn to write dialogue, learn to use all the literary devices, learn what they're for, and use them. But I'll tell you, the trick I'm telling you about watching a movie with a clicker in your hand and stopping it and thinking about what they show me, how they show it to me, why did they show me. You make a note, and then later in the story you say, oh, because he's afraid of snakes, now he has a real problem, you know, or whatever. Anybody else have a question or anything like that?
You know, you worked with Stanley at Marvel. You worked with him on the Spider-Man strip. What was it like working with Stanley, and what did you learn from him?
Stan is what I call an instinctive player. It's like there's a lot of people who are. Let's just talk about the people who buy creative work. 98% of them have no clue. They're somebody's brother-in-law, or they were in the accounting department and they wanted to get into creative, or something, and they really have no idea what they're looking at. You know, and then there's about 2% that do know what they're looking at. 1% of those is what I call instinctive players. They know it, they can do it, and they can't tell you why. But, you know, I think they kind of feel it. They do it. Neil Gaiman is an instinctive player. I went to one of his writing lectures once, and all he could say was, write like me. I mean, he really couldn't explain what he did. He didn't understand, you know, he didn't have like this sort of analytical approach. And then there's 1%, the other part of the 2% that are the analytical players, like Archie Goodwin. He could do it, and he could tell you exactly why he was doing what he was doing, and he explained how to do it, you know. And I think Stan tends more to be instinctive. It's more like, do it like this, you know, rather than being able to say, here's how you think of this, and here's how you approach it. So working with him was great. It was especially good because I already had a foundation from Mort Weissman, and I learned so much from Mort, and also Mort inspired me to do a lot of reading on my own. So I had, you know, I was trying to be a student of the game, so that when Stan said stuff, even if he couldn't explain it, I could say, oh, I see. That fits with what Mort said and what I read in his book, and you know, I could piece it together. So you find an instinctive player, it's fine. They're going to tell you right like me. You find a real analytical guy like Archie Goodwin, you know, then they can teach you. Because Archie Goodwins are rare. But so people say, well, how do I, you know, submit stuff? Back in the days when you actually could submit stuff, I say persistence, because 98 out of 100 times you're going to get it to somebody you couldn't tell if was good if they're like dependent on it. And they'll never lose their job for hiring John Byrne, but they'll lose it for hiring you if you don't work out. So they're not going to take any chance on you. Every once in a while you come across Archie Goodwin, Gilby Simons, Larry Hama, somebody like that who knows what they're looking at, knows why it's good, and will, you know, you have an opportunity with them. So persistence, you've got to send it out 100 times and hope that that day it happens to land on Archie Goodwin's desk. So you have to send it out 200 times or 400 times.
Well, who's one of your favorite ones to work with the artists? Who's
artists?
Well, like when you come up with the story, who would you, like, for example, Len Wein and Bernie Weissman worked together very closely with Swamp
Yes.
Thing. Who did you like to work with?
Well, mostly David Lapham. I would say he was my favorite. Although Don Perlin was right up there. Don was a great storyteller. I mean, his art, his style was a little old-fashioned, so he never got the credit. He wasn't like, he didn't have that Jim Lee flash, but he told a story like crazy, and he got it. He understood it. It was just like Babel. He got it. He added to it. He always like putting little touches in that made it better. Gave me everything I wanted and then some other extra. George Paris was like that too. You know, it's a little tricky because when you're a writer for comics, you are so dependent on the artist. I mean, you get a bad art job, everybody thinks you can't write. It's like you write the most brilliant script in the world, and you know, it's the art isn't good. And they go, you can't write. And then you know, the opposite is true too. Sometimes the art is good and say, writing's pretty good. You know. So I don't know. But any other questions? Or?
What was the first story you published?
First story I published. Well, the first one I wrote was an adventure comics, Legion of Superheroes. We published them out of order. So the first one I wrote was number 348. The first one published number 346. So it was all right. They didn't have any continuity at DC in those days. You could read 100 Superman stories in any order. It didn't matter. You know. And with the Legion, at first when I started, I just did individual stories that didn't necessarily relate. But then I realized I owned the future. I had the only series that was 7,000 years in the future. I owned the future. And so I started doing continuity because I wasn't interfering with anybody else. It was my world. So, but yeah, that was strange times.
Okay, before we wrap up, just a personal note. Engel told me that our guest was going to be Jim Shooter. I was just, you could have knocked me over with a feather over the last couple of days. Spending some time with her. What a particularly gracious guy, informative, inspiring. Jim, thank you so much for being our very special guest. Thank you so much.
He thinks he's safe. Doesn't think we know his patterns, his vulnerabilities. We know where his girlfriend lives and how to get at his sidekick. He's faced one clown before, but soon he'll face the clown syndicate. There's more than one way to peel a potato.
Dude, what the f***?